Creating a successful influencer collaboration in the B2B space is like constructing a bridge, connecting a partnership with innovation and strategy together. And today we explore how these bridges propel businesses forward. Joining us today is James Bridgman, Senior Marketing Director at the Cumming Group, and he will be sharing insights and strategies into marketing partnerships that have catapulted businesses to new heights in his career. Coming up in today's episode, the power of partnerships in scaling businesses, partnership challenges and strategies, the impact of a global Mastercard campaign. James, I'm really excited to discuss B2B marketing and your insights into this. But first, I wanted to know, in your experience, how do you get thought leaders or influencers involved?
So I guess there's broadly two ways. You can do it organically, so you can leverage the network within your business. So oftentimes the founders, the CEOs will have a certain standing within their industry. And we certainly used that at the last few places that I was working to try and say, okay, let's use your network. Let's start from that and then build it out. And I think that gives you the credibility to start to engage some of those people. Of course, that's not very scalable, which is the problem. The second way of doing it is to simply buy it. Like a lot of these people, a lot of influencers, senior analysts, whoever you want to, within the banking world, it was often people who were well respected on the speaking circuit with very specific conferences, or particular publications. They might have a column in like American Banker or Payments or whatever it might be. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to buy your way into it, to be seen as associated with that brand, because the one thing I think that's going to be more and more important is trust for brands and to be seen as credible. I think for your message and for your content to land well, you have to get over that trust element. And if you don't have it to start with, you can't fabricate it. You have to build it over time. But in the meantime, you have to buy it really in some shape or form. And I think, we used a lot of trade publications, that sort of thing. So at least we were part of that conversation. And in the meantime, in the background, we were working very hard on our network on smaller events. So like you were saying with the video interviews, I think anything experiential, if I can use that word, is going to be more and more valuable as digital becomes more and more ubiquitous and more widely distributed and the volume of it goes up and up. I think anything with a one-to-one or a one-to-several element to it will give much more value to people than perhaps people saw it used to. Obviously, it's harder work because they have to give up their time, busy people, and you have to get through to them. But if you can do it in a way which makes it clear that you're putting a significant amount of effort into it, that they will get benefits from it, I think you've got a good chance to build that brand and that trust and that reputation within your target group, at the same time as continuing on the commercial side.
Could you elaborate on how different figures like influencers or thought leaders play a role in building a brand's reputation?
No, that's all right. I think the thing is that it's sort of interchangeable, isn't it? Sort of influencer, thought leader, analysts and sort of speaker or whatever. They're all flavors of the same thing, really. What we're talking about is respected voices, credible voices that you can use. And I think if you think about, what I specialize in tend to be scaling growth businesses. So they don't usually have a brand reputation. They might have a few individuals who've done things before, have a good network, but they don't have a brand that carries that reputation before them. So you have to build that. And any association, any quality interaction that you can leverage with people who are established in the industry, who people listen to, has a huge amount of value. But it does take investment in understanding what they need to get out of it in order for it to be successful, and also it's very difficult to do it as a one-off, not just because it seems very transactional then and it's less worthwhile, but also think about your own marketing team, right? If you're trying to rebuild your boat every 6 months, it's really tiring when at some point you don't want to build the boat anymore. You want to go and sail it somewhere. So I think if you can have a longer term, short term and medium strategy with all these things, it helps both sides.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. But what advice could you offer on the challenges you've experienced in working with thought leaders?
Yeah, so I know at Pollinate, which is the most recent examples that I've got, we were working with a big industry publication in the States. And the biggest challenge with them was that they had a very nailed down agenda, like particularly the founder who was doing a lot of the interviews and things for their channels that we were trying to sort of get in front of. And it was very difficult to get them to say what we wanted them to say. So the only way we could do it was really saying, okay, let's sort of go for a broader package of engagement with this title, if you like, and have complementary bits where they had less influence because they were protective over this one sort of headline, sort of video interview series. And so we did the main thing, but we put most of the effort into the supporting editorial and the supporting advertising on their platform to try not to sort of get knocked off course in terms of what we wanted to do. Because it is really difficult if you're working with someone with a particular agenda that doesn't exactly suit yours, but you still want to leverage the trust of that person or that media title or whatever it is, then you do need to find a way to sort of have your cake and eat it, if you like. But you're going to be banging your head against the wall if you're trying to get them to something that they clearly don't want to do. So, I mean, the two-way rounds it, if you go for more junior people, more sort of less influential, but still have some sort of standing in the industry, you've got more flexibility, but of course they have less reach. You can build your own. So that's one thing I think is definitely worth doing. So if you've got someone within the business who is very charismatic or has a very particular point of view or is super engaged in terms of getting there and speaking, then jump on that and try and, amplify that as much as possible. But if it's a big name, you're going to have less control over what they say. But the fact is, you're by association, if you're seen alongside them, you'll get a certain amount of credibility without it. But to get a specific message across, you're going to have to do something around the sides and on the back of that particular activity.
So would it be beneficial to partner with micro-influencers then, rather than looking at someone, say, who's a lot more established?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that sort of whole influencer strategy, which was, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 years ago, was super on fire in terms of, go into all these platforms and buy a suite of different influencers and reach out using your campaign. I think that has died down a lot because I don't think the results have really borne it out. But I think the challenge with working with lots of influencers is that the management time is just really, really challenging in terms, because most B2B marketing teams don't have huge teams. And to manage that number of different people, I think you can do it in a different way. So you can crowdsource or enable a number of different people to get engaged with a particular campaign in a way that you can use their influence indirectly. But obviously you have to put a certain amount of incentives, certain amount of input into that community to make sure that they're supported in that. But you can't probably afford to do a one-to-one sort of management of lots of different smaller influencers. You have to have it as part of a campaign, community activity, possibly a partner organization, trade organization, something like that you could partner up with.
As we look to wrap up today, could you offer an example and the results of what a successful influencer partnership brings?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that naturally leads on to how partnerships can sort of segue and leverage influencer type strategies. And I've always tried to do that because I think on a B2B case, either your clients or your sector bodies have a huge influence over where you get your next clients from. And I know at Pollinate, we pitched the idea to Mastercard. So we'd signed a contract, a partnership agreement with Mastercard, primarily over the tech delivery of the solution. And there was sort of a one-liner in there about marketing, sort of we should do some marketing together, but no one really knew what to do. So I had some really long calls with their global marketing team, PR team, in New York, and said, what are your problems? How can we solve your problems as a small fintech, a little bit more agile than you? You're not going to go through big hoops and loops to get something done, and you've got programs mapped out for the next 18 months. What are your problems? And they basically said, well, what we really want to do is do more voice of the customer. For Mastercard, they were one step away because their clients, the banks and the financial institutions who used Mastercard to give to their customers, were their customers. So they weren't Mastercard's customers. But they still wanted to bring to life the fact that Mastercard have a lot of solutions for small businesses. And so we pitched them several ideas, and one of which was a filmmaking competition around small businesses. Like, how have they come out of the pandemic? How have they been, engaged in their community? How have they used technology to help them sort of survive and thrive, if you like? And that was called Ingenious, and and they loved that idea, and we basically acted as an agency for them, and we would liaise quite closely with them to make sure that the small businesses that were involved in this project were supported. There was prizes for the top filmmakers, and we had 31 countries take part, all sort of professional level, sort of almost feature film level quality a lot of the time, because there were independent filmmakers around the world, contacted their local communities and said, I love your shop or your business that I go past every day. Is there a story behind this? And it was a great success. And we had coverage over the world in terms of our different sectors, small business. So we were really interested in engaging with banks, usually the head of small business for banks or the head of payments. So it was very relevant to our audience. We had our logo next to Mastercard's all the way around the world. And Mastercard could, feature it on, they had global stand-ups across the whole business around the world that they used these examples for. It sort of set up their next stage of small business engagement, which is sort of metamorphosed now into the Strive program, which they have supporting small businesses around the world. We had some great stories, some great films that we could showcase that ended up on Mastercard primary website, which is priceless.com. The small businesses got a little package of support as well, and additional resources that they could use to keep on going and raise their profile. So sort of everyone won, really, and the filmmakers won prizes and a great piece for their portfolio. So, and that just came out of just listening really closely to what Mastercard would like out of our relationship, and perhaps some of the things we could do that they would struggle to do. So I think there's a lesson there that if you can listen a little bit more into the partners who you could potentially work with, you might well find an interesting idea that you can work on together.
Wow, that sounds like a super successful partnership. Do you have any other campaigns you could share similar to that?
I think so. I was working for a apprenticeship business called Get My First Job, and we did some really interesting partnership things with things like the National, the Low Wage Association, and certain business organisations. We launched Big Assembly across, which is this during National Apprenticeship Week. So we would launch a live virtual assembly across thousands of schools across the country. And that was just a great platform to get people involved in our segment. So all the local colleges and things that used our platform to post vacancies on apprenticeships and get young people to be involved. It got the schools involved and our brand name out there. And that became sort of a national event that ran for, I think, 5 years or so, something like that. We got great coverage from it and great engagement across the piece. So it was really good. And we sort of partnered to deliver that. We partnered with sort of charities and educational institutions, as well as FE colleges and other people. So it was really worthwhile.
Building partnership bridges with strategy and innovation leads to growth. Keep constructing, keep connecting, and stay connected with James by following him on LinkedIn and Twitter. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode and look forward to more of these interviews on YouTube coming from me, Ross Webb. And until next time, bye for now.